All right, I'd like to call to order the April 17th meeting of the New Canaan Board of Education. If you could take a look at the April 3rd minutes that are at your place, and when you've had a chance to take a look at them, if I could get a motion to approve the April 3rd minutes. Sangeeta? Second? Tom? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. The next item is the review and approval of the agenda. You have in front of you a slightly modified agenda. You'll notice the addition of the action item of the Saks PTC donation. And I'd also like to amend the presenter for the climate to say Dr. Bliss, not Ms. Bliss. So if I could get a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Jen, second. Sherry, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Moving on to comments from the public. To ensure the public's right to be heard, the board has set aside time during the meeting for public comments. 2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Do I have anyone who wishes to address the board? Seeing none, we will move on to reports and recognition. And the first item under our reports and recognition is our school climate initiative at West with Dr. Bliss.
Thank you so much. Is this working?
Sorry. You know what? I think Ms. Bianca has something to say.
Ms. Bianca.
That was my fault.
Good evening, everyone. As you've met Dr. Bliss, she was, I think, here in the late fall. Dr. Bliss is our school climate coordinator, and that's just one of the many wonderful jobs she does in the school district with our clinical team. In the continuing interest of informing the board on some of the work that's being done in our schools that relates to school climate, we wanted to bring to you this evening the West School administrative team, and I'm sure that Dr. Bliss will introduce them. There's some wonderful things going on at West, and we wanted you to be aware of what they are and some of the details of those.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? So I would like to first just introduce you to Jan Murphy, the principal of West, and Ashley Fineri, the assistant principal. And I've just so enjoyed working with them. They have such a passion for this work, so I feel lucky that we've been a team with this. So our agenda tonight is really just to try to give you an overview of the school climate work. And I wanted to start actually with a little bit of context to talk to you a little bit about why I think this work is so important. And I know you're aware, of course, of district goal number 4. So this is really what we're working on, is the promotion of an environment that fosters respect, ethical behavior, and responsible global citizenship. And I think that kind of covers what the school climate is about for us. We did put a number of objectives underneath that we've been working on through the work, and I think you'll hear them throughout the presentation. The first one is school climate plans. Each school does have a plan with goals, and so Jan and Ashley will be talking a little bit about their goals. We do use the SAPL framework. I know you're familiar with that social, academic, and personal learning framework to guide the work that we're doing, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. And also, we really have had a focus on student voice and how important it is to involve our students, and we want to hear from them about their experience in the school, so we'll be talking a little bit more about that. So people ask me, what does the district school climate person do? And I just like to kind of try to sum it up by, I feel like my job, our job, is really to make sure that every child feels safe and connected and engaged in learning, and that they're available for learning. You know, we can give them all kinds of wonderful content, but we have to make sure they're really there and ready to hear it. And so that's, I think, what we're working on together with school climate. I also feel like school climate can be a very big word. It covers a lot, so I just wanted to talk for a second about the different aspects or dimensions of school climate that I think about when I walk into a school and want to continue to improve all the time, although they're exceptional already, I must say. So safety is clearly one of them, just making sure that every child is both emotionally and physically safe. Teaching and learning, making sure that each child is excited to be learning, is engaged, and also teaching social emotional learning so that global citizenship idea. Interpersonal relationships is obviously a huge, and I'd say probably the most important part of school climate, relationships and making sure kids are feeling connected to their teachers and to each other, and also that the environment itself, people are engaged and with the norms of the schools, and that it's a welcoming place. So given that social emotional learning is part of school climate, I just wanted to mention for a second, these are also the dimensions of SAPL that you're familiar with, our SAPL framework. These are skills, I like to think of them as skills for success, that we're really teaching, trying to help kids develop. And I think you'll see when Jan and Ashley talk about kindness as one of their focuses for the year, that it really covers all of these. You know, you need to be self-aware to be kind. You need to have self-management to be kind. Obviously, it's related to relationship skills. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to work on with kindness. I guess that academic background, I couldn't help myself. I'm going to try to fly through this so you're not asleep. But I did want to say a little bit, because I feel like it's important that this is evidence-based work. And I actually showed you this slide once before, but I feel like it's an important piece to just remember that there is a lot of robust research at this point demonstrating that there's actually not only benefits for social emotional learning in terms of pro-social development of kids, but also academically. And we see as much as an 11% increase in academic performance when kids are taught the skills that I just showed you. So that, again, focus on kindness is one that we're really excited about. School connectedness is also something that's very important and talked about a lot with school climate, and is associated with positive academic outcomes, positive self-esteem, and also a lower frequency of behavioral problems. In addition, school climate has been associated with positive self-esteem, lower levels of drug use in high school students, and fewer reports of psychiatric problems. So there is growing literature about the importance of school climate. I think this is something that the Fortune 500 companies have known for a long time, that organizational culture is important to outcomes. And you know, as school organizations, we're kind of slower, but really beginning to understand the importance that we have to make sure the kids are motivated to learn, that they're excited to learn, that they're engaged to learn, that they feel safe enough to learn. So that's really what school climate, to me, is all about. So the last thing I just wanted to mention was that we have our particular model of school climate has been driven by Professor of Education Bill Preble, and he really has taught us a lot about using collaborative action research to drive to drive our school climate work. So our survey helps us to develop the goals and look at where we need to improve and look at our strengths. And again, a focus on that student voice, that we really want to have our students involved, and I think you'll see that in the exciting work that Jan and Ashley have been doing. So that's my quick context for you, and at this point, again, I'd just like to introduce Jan to tell you a little bit more in detail about the exciting work at West. Thank you.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to come and share some of the work that we're doing at West School. So as you heard Susan say, through some of our work with Dr. Bill Preble, and after analyzing some of our school climate data, we realized that there was a gap between the perceptions of students and the perceptions of teachers when it came to student voice. Sorry. And so, so what we did was we realized that teachers felt that they were giving students a voice, but the student perception was that they didn't understand how that was happening. So we really looked at our data and we really unpacked 3 specific areas for growth. We looked at the idea of students being asked about their ideas and how we can make our classroom a better place. We looked at how students would be asked for ideas about how we can make our school a better place. And then we looked at how older students are being kind to younger students. So we really explicitly unpacked that, and we talked a lot about student voice and how student voice could be used in these 3 areas under the guise of being kind. So we created our learning community growth goal was students will demonstrate growth and pro-social relationships that promote and strengthen a positive school culture within our school-wide community. So we decided to keep it really simple. We wanted to use language that kids really understood and would be able to unpack. So we started to talk about what does it mean to be kind? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And we started to look for examples throughout the school, and we started to ask students to provide examples of this for us. So we also wanted to tie it into our SAPL framework, which you heard Dr. Bliss talk about. And we picked the strand of social awareness and relationship skills. And underneath that strand, it basically says students will understand that communication, cooperation, and collaboration are critical relationships for successful living in a diverse global society. So what does that mean? Basically, when we started to look at that strand a little bit further, we found that some of the things that we really expected kids to know and be able to do would be to be able to identify similarities and differences between each other, and to be an active listener, and then to establish some of those positive friendships. So through our LST program, which is comprised of our social worker, school psychologist, Mr. and Mrs. Fernari and I, we decided to plan some shared experiences for kids by reading stories and reading books that had to do with that, to unpack those, to make sure that students in every grade level were receiving developmentally appropriate lessons that sort of supported some of this work and really helped them understand what it means to be kind. So we challenged all of our teachers to come up with a plan and asked them, what will your learning community growth goal be? We had already met with parents at the end of last year to help us sort of form a vision, and we had met with our school climate team. And the one thing I think Ashley and I really wanted was to keep it simple, and that was something that we had learned from some of our work with Brian. So we just decided, let's keep it really simple. Let's just use the words be kind, and that became our mantra. Step one was to identify what it meant to be kind. So we asked the question, what is kindness? And we came up with a group definition. Kindness means being friendly, generous, or considerate to ourselves and others through our words and actions. So we had a working definition, and we decided to select a mentor text that would support this school climate goal. As in the past, we had chosen a book the first 2 years, and so this was the book that we chose for this year.
So I get to deliver to you the fun part, what our teachers did with the goal that Jen and I had talked about over the summer. So for our first faculty meeting, we had found this book, What Does It Mean to Be Kind? And our wonderful PTC purchased a copy for all of our classrooms. And we shared with the staff at our first meeting the message that the author was conveying in the book. The single most important value I hope to teach my children is to be kind. And the book ends, and the last couple years we've had books that have a message in them also, but this was the message for this book and what we liked about it. The last page says, and spread the word, if we can all be kind to each other and to ourselves, our world would be more loving, caring, and harmonious. And so that was the message that we delivered to the staff, and basically we asked them to take this message, bring it to their classrooms, and find a way to make it grow. So like I said, I get the part where I get to show you how our staff, students, parents, and community at West help to make kindness grow. So here's a whole list of amazing things that our classrooms did. Our school psychologist took the goal and decided to do some research, and he is working with K through 4 students in many different ways, developmentally appropriate ways, to collect research on their views of kindness within our building. And so we're looking forward to seeing that research. We are also looking forward to, at the end of the year, our first grade class is going to be performing their end of the year concert, and the music teacher has used kindness as the theme, so they're performing all sorts of things related to kindness. Our first grade team, this is our kindness board around Valentine's Day. They wanted to use their community service project to base it around kindness, and they each took hearts, and they asked kids to recognize kindness around them at home in the community, and then to write those examples on the heart, and it's displayed in our main lobby. Our second grade teacher, Mrs. Land, decided to bring Ben's Bells to the West community, which is has been amazing. Each grade level in each classroom has embraced it in a different way, and each child's voice is heard within the classroom. So one classroom, we have a video at the end the child will share, they pass the necklace. Let me show you an example. This is what they look like. They pass the necklace throughout the day, so the kids are recognizing kindness in each other. And then at the end of the day, the fourth grade classroom sits in a circle and debriefs on why they've received it or the acts of kindness they've noticed throughout the day. It's a great way to close the day in a positive way and for, again, kids' voices to be heard. So we are belling each other throughout the day, and the kids are very proud when you see them in the hallway and say, "What did you get the bell for?" They share immediately, and it's a wonderful way to recognize kindness. Mrs. Murphy had mentioned that through our LST team, our leadership team, that each of us has taken a grade level to form a connection with a grade level, so the kids know that we're supporting the goal also. So this is an example of how we used kindness. The book they read was Jack's Talents, and we had all of the third grade in our brown bag theater. And the message was to be an active listener and to learn about your peers. And so the kids they are doing a survey where they're listening to each other, they're learning talents and strengths in each other, and that's another way to show kindness by being an active listener and caring about each other. This is them sitting in circles and doing the activity. And even our secretaries in the main office decided they wanted to revamp the main office, and they brought kindness into the main office. So this is our kindness counts board, and the staff recognizes kind acts that are happening in the board, and they'll post it. And it's fun to watch them say, "Oh, my name is up there," for whatever reason, they're up there. These are our wonderful second grade, Mrs. Fortman and Mrs. Tamburo, first grade. And something wonderful that came out of this year was buddy classes. So one of the things we noticed when we looked at the data was that older kids, one of the things we're working on is older kids being kind to younger kids. And what we realized was our older kids don't always see our younger kids, and vice versa because of scheduling. So we wanted to embed opportunities for them to be together. So first grade and second grade came together and came up with an idea and made it grow. International Day of Happiness, which happened to be the first day of spring, and they spread happiness through the building. They met together, they developed T-shirts, they shared treats with the staff. It was a really wonderful day. And then they hung these posters throughout the building, so all kids were able to express what happiness meant to them. Each grade level has one hanging in their hallway. And so those are just some of the things that we're doing.
And so, as I mentioned before, we had created this vision. So we met with our adult design team, and Dr. Bill Preble actually came and spent quite a bit of time with that team, and two very active parent members. And we just got together, and basically he said, just start with something simple. He said, give teachers permission to do something small and spread it and share it. And that you saw an example of that with the International Day of Happiness. We also this year have refined our student design team, which you may or may not know. They named themselves the Turtle Group, primarily because they thought the turtle was a good metaphor for their team. It's a student-led team. The turtle has a hard shell but a soft inner part, and they thought that was a good metaphor. We used a lot of the language that Bill taught us about the dignity of expertise and how important it is when you're creating a student-led team to find students in your school that represent all of the different groups that are in your school, the athletic groups, the art group, the music group. So we really, last year, I think we spent a lot of time really being very careful in crafting who those students would be, and we invited them to be part of the team. They're in the process right now of creating a logo for themselves, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But this team is really the way that we want kids to have a student voice. We're also using a respect continuum that Dr. Bill Preble had shared with us, and it's really about how to move the staff especially from viewing students as being compliant and following rules to empowering students to be able to make good choices and really kind of moving in that personalized learning where students are in charge of their own learning and their own behavior. So our student leadership team developed, they are in the process of developing, this is the acronym, the TURTLE stands for trustworthy, understanding, respectful, together, loyalty, and equality. And as a turtle moves very slowly, so does our student leadership team, and everything is evolving slowly and steadily. They have been establishing some student team goals that promote kindness within our school. One of the things that we asked that they do would be to keep intact our 3 R's, which is the be ready, be respectful, be responsible. So keep that in mind when they were creating their school goals. We gave them an opportunity to look at the student data and decide on what it means. So they looked at the numbers, they looked at some of the comments that had been made, and then they developed an action plan. And I think as adults in the building, this is probably where we learned the most out of the mouths of babes, because they basically said, why don't we just keep it simple? Why don't we just have everyone focus on saying please and thank you? Why don't we have older kids helping younger students? And maybe we could even have kids just say hello and adults say hello to each other in the hallways. So we came away with some really concrete, very simple goals from listening to the students. So our turtle group is in process. They're in the process of creating a logo for their group. They want the shell to have the image of the world on the back of it because they feel like their goal is to change the world. They're in the process of creating a survey, a very short survey for students, because they're looking for problems within the school that we can solve, or they can solve. And then the third thing, there are actually 3 distinct teams working in this turtle group. They're looking for ways to model kindness and behaviors during morning meetings, during town meetings, and other ways throughout the school day. And so now what we have is we have a short video clip. It's going to start with 3 of our turtle members, but you'll be seeing multiple members of our turtle team in the video. And you'll also see a few clips and snippets from some of the videos that students have created for our town meeting to show how we've been teaching some of these behaviors. So we can get that started.
What does it mean to be kind? Smiling at a new student class. Giving someone a hug. Forgiving someone who has hurt you. Don't you try something new for spreading kindness. Decide to change it simple. More smiles and kindness will long way turn to someone. You are helpful and responsible and back. It means to be kind when you help someone out behind you. Sometimes you see what we did remember something kindness is helping us. We are choosing to be this far.
Oh, hi. Are you two lost?
Yes. I think I might be lost. Can I get home?
Okay, stay calm. We're gonna go, girl.
We use the kindness coin by every day one person gets the kindness coin. In the afternoon before school ends, we have
So, as a result of our work, we had a school climate meeting a few weeks ago. Is it off? Yeah. We've actually created our plan for next year. Some of our next steps are to, we're actually considering adding the Be Kind to our 3 Rs. We'll have to change the name of it, because it won't be the 3 Rs anymore, but we're thinking it might be the umbrella for Be Kind, where all the other 3 things fall underneath. So that's something that our school climate team came up with this year. Our goals for our turtle group are to do more problem finding around the school and coming up with some innovative solutions and modeling that for students. We're going to be doing more work with buddy classes and really making a shift toward more intentional practice and being able to find time during faculty meetings to really plan some effective lessons based on the student needs. We're moving toward more explicit teaching and maybe making some more assured experiences during the morning meeting lessons. Faculty is very, very interested in something called closing circles. It's a great way to end the day at the end of the day, and you saw some of our students who are already doing that with the Ben's Bells. And some of the faculty are interested in forming a study group around the idea of closing circles, which is a responsive classroom tool. We also are going to be focusing our community service projects next year around our outdoor learning center, and that came out of a need to have the kids feel more connected to the ideas that they have about giving back to the school. And the thought was that if everyone's sort of doing something for the school to make it a more special place, like for the outdoor learning center in the middle of the building, that they would feel that sense of school community and school pride, and that would really foster a more of a positive school climate. And then we're doing a lot of work this year to align our school climate with our town meetings. Every single town meeting we've had has gotten better. It's kind of a joke now who's going to outdo the next one. And then we're also considering next year about having a family night where we actually bring in some of the people from Ben's Bells and celebrate the Ben's Bells. So we would like to invite each of you to be the spark. It starts with 1, and just be kind. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Or?
Does anyone on the board have some? Sherry?
So first of all, I just want to say I love everything about this. And Dr. Bliss, I love the focus and social emotional learning that you've brought district-wide, but then specifically Jan and Ashley. As a West School parent, I think your efforts and focus on this are very evident. And I love everything, the organic kind of grassroots feel of empowering the teachers and engaging the student voice, I think is so very powerful. So the one question I had is, I think I'm a believer in this social emotional learning and the climate and the impact that has on the self-esteem and the drug use and the psychiatric problems. How do we go about measuring that specifically, like in our system?
Sure. Well, we do a school climate survey. We do that every other year, and so that's really our main measurement tool at this point in terms of measuring how we're doing as a district in terms of school climate and how kids feel connected, whether they're engaged in their learning, and all of those questions. In terms of looking at self-esteem or those sorts of things, that's not something that we measure at this point. I mean, I think that obviously at the elementary level there are things in the report card like citizenship that kind of get at that in some ways, but that's not something that we're doing at this point. Yeah.
Do you ever foresee us extending the measurement, and what are the best practices in other districts in terms of really understanding the impact?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a complicated question, to think about that. There's a lot of, I think people have different feelings about boundaries around. It becomes personal, and I think that's something we'd have to think really carefully about as a district. At the same time, I do understand it would be nice in some ways to understand where our kids are and the stress, for example, and we've talked at points that maybe that's one question we could think about, how stressed or, are the kids feeling. Since that seems to be something. But I think it's a complicated question, I'll be honest. I think that's a hard one.
Yeah, and if I can just
Sure.
very quickly, it is since it's measured through the survey, there is an inclination to want to compare, right? To think
Yeah.
of it, okay, well, how is our school climate versus, compared against another school or against a norm? And I've come to think of it more as golf than as a different sport, where you're just looking to always improve your own score.
Yes.
As we look at
Yes.
these things, because it is it's individual, and the areas that we focus on are sort of generated by our own and the results that we get. So I know there's an inclination to compare against the other, and sort of we have the #1 school climate in the state or whatever, but it's that's really not an accurate measurement to use.
Yeah.
Susan, and through her research and sharing her research, has certainly helped me in my understanding of those pieces as well. The state did begin a few years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, requiring that all districts do perform a school climate survey every 2 years at a minimum. And they had an instrument that they had recommended or suggested, or one thing that you could use, and we've decided to to use something that's more specific to our environment as well. So those comparisons really aren't available that way. And I don't think that's what you were asking.
It
but
wasn't. Yeah,
no, I
right.
know that.
Right.
But it's it's a standardized measure when you think about it. So you're always, maybe it's just me, I don't know. And my mind goes there first, and so we had processed that through a little bit and thought about it.
Sangeeta?
Well, I'm glad to hear that too. That we're not looking to have another measurement for the kids to compete. We have enough competition in our district here, and the kids do wonderful. But it just makes sense, and I'm glad that this is done with respect, that you looked at all the research, and that shows, and it just just common sense. Things like if you feel comfortable in a space, if you feel like you belong, you're going to want to participate more. You're going to feel better at doing whatever you're doing, and in our area, it's learning, so I'm glad, because it is difficult to learn if you're worried about bullying, or you're worried that you don't fit in, and it's just natural tendencies of of human nature. So it's great that we're trying to get people to kind of understand each other and be kind. I did have one question on your thing, and it's really not necessarily about the special motion, but you're doing a lot of things with the town meetings, and I'm not that familiar with what that is, because when we went to East School, we didn't have those, so I'm not sure what that is at West School. Yeah.
Well, a town meeting really is, it's a responsive classroom. We've kind of made it into a West School kind of a town meeting. We've taken pieces of it, but, and jump in anytime if you want to add to it. But the students, and we've always had assemblies that were student-led, but for these town meetings, the students are personalizing them based on some of the things that they see going on in the school. So they've created energizers, ways for the audience to be more interactive during the assemblies. As you can see, they created videos to show students and model some of the behaviors that we expected under those 3 goals that we made. So it's really meant to really develop more of a sense of community and belonging. And that's what that's the goal of a town meeting. So rather than calling it an assembly or a school assembly, a town meeting is a place where everybody kind of comes together, and we share celebrations, we share, we still do our, baby pictures of teachers, which is one of the most favorite things, for the kids. But it's just the idea of it is to build community. And so we made a little shift. We had 3 teachers who kind of helped organize that. We made a little bit of a shift this year, and we have plans to kind of make more of a shift into that for next year too. So
Thanks for
does that
explaining
help?
that. Yeah, no,
Thanks,
it does, and I'm glad. I like the shift between going from assembly to town meeting, because again, it's much more participation of everybody. So. Great.
And then some of the things that they learn, the greetings, and are things that they can actually take back to the classroom and use in the classroom. So, like one of them was hocus pocus, and the kids would say hocus pocus, and the audience said time to focus. So teachers are using that in the classroom, so it's sort of spreading through the school. So it's simple little things like that are becoming start to become more of the norm. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Maria?
I like that you have it distilled down to just be kind, because it's kind of all-inclusive. And I agree with what Sherry was saying about measuring, but I like that the measurement is not a personal measurement, because I feel like you kind of can cross the line. But I'm wondering if you're seeing a difference in I don't know what indicator you would use, because things are pretty good in general, but are there less discipline issues? Are you hearing feedback from parents? Are the behaviors going home? Are they telling their parents to be kind?
We've gotten very positive feedback from parents in regard to students being able to self-regulate when they feel stressed. So they're able to articulate, number 1, how they're feeling, number 2, some of the strategies that they can use when, example is a grade 1 classroom teacher has taught kids to go to their happy place when they feel stressed, and she's given them strategies. We've got students as young as kindergarten who know that when they feel stressed in the classroom can go over to a sensory center and actually do, 5 wall push-ups or whatever. So they're starting to be able to recognize when they feel these feelings and be able to do things about them. So we don't have a formal measurement of that, but in regard to school climate, I love the metaphor of golf because it is always about getting better. One of the things the survey showed us was that there was a really big difference between what the students perceived as student voice and teachers. And by digging deeper into that, it really was just about kids not understanding how they had a voice in the classroom. So we were able to really unpack that for kids and do a better job of showing them how they do have a choice at school. So, using that data, and I don't know how we measure that, but hopefully next time we give that question on the survey, we'll get a better response. So anyway, does that answer your question? Yeah?
Anyone else have a question? Hazel?
I just want to compliment. Everything I'd say, I think would be repeating the wonderful things that people have already said. And I think it's such an interesting idea to think of some of the things that you were just talking about and saying. We may not think about them, but of course, if someone is having a problem, they're trying to work it out, there's no way they're doing their math. It's trying to work that situation out, and they're worried about the playground or something at lunch and recess. They can't really concentrate on their reading. I think it'll be a very interesting thing to see as you keep doing this and having it layer from year to year. It may show up academically, and it may have shown up academically other places. I don't know. I'd be interested, but I think you first have to get the groundwork of what you're doing in place.
Right. Well, the whole premise is really about the research is showing that doing this work really does make students more available for learning because the emotions do get in the way of learning. So, and there's more and more research coming out on that as we speak. So, it's interesting to learn more about it. So,
Jen?
So I too think it's great what you guys are doing. I know how important it is. And I'm just curious, so at SACS, it would be hard to measure, I guess, particularly at West School because this is becoming ingrained in them. So when they get to SACS, I know we're doing efforts with the student body there as well, but is it kind of going to be based on this track? So it's going to be supporting, I know that they probably age out of the Be Kind. I don't know. I guess you never age out of the Be Kind. No. But what, yes, we are all to be kind. But when you get to SACS, is there going to be things that carry over from the efforts that you're making in the elementary schools to conduct? Because that's when it's really important.
No, it's a great question. I have to say, I think I've spent most of my time at SACS of all of the schools, just because, we know middle school is a challenging time for kids to learn this. And we've been doing, I think, some tremendous work. The kids are driving it again, so they don't always use the word kind, but they spent a long time. We had a number of different projects going on, including they have their 3 C's, which is caring, commitment, and communication. And so we use those to try to do posters around the importance of caring in the cafeteria and places where they had some difficulty. They are doing things like making printouts of quotes on respectful relationships, and that's what they chose. The word respect is important to them. And so, yes, we're doing a lot of different kinds of group work with them to help them as well to think about the importance of relationships and just having these skills in their lives. Yeah.
And the question, Jen, is a very important one, and we've been talking about it quite a bit about the alignment, K-12 for the work, so that there is a progression to this. And so Susan is pulling together a district-wide committee that's going to be made up of representatives on each of the building committees, and that they'll be able to articulate together the work that they're doing and be able to share successes and continue to develop the program with a K-12 focus, so that it is the students are learning and growing, and it's one year is building upon the next. So there's a plan for that and a progression.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do want to have shared language and shared experiences, so there is something we can build on all the good work that they're doing. Yeah.
Anyone else? Maria?
I was just thinking it might be good to share what you're doing with there's so many youth groups in the town that are educating the same kids that come here, and they can reframe what you're doing in a way that lines up. It's all the same message. So I just had that thought that it would be interesting to get this information out to every one of the youth groups that are doing this, the religious education. I think there's a few youth groups, there's a lot of them, the YMCA. Yeah, good message.
Thanks.
It doesn't hurt to have it repeated in another.
That's right.
different
That's a good
day.
point.
The grocery store, maybe.
Check that. Anyone else? I had a couple questions. The first being, so your student leadership teams, the Turtles, I guess, or whatever. How do you choose those students, and do they shift over the years? And how do you engage more kids in sort of taking ownership?
That's a tough question because basically, Dr. Preble said, you really want to not select, but define some of the different types of groups and students in your school. And we took a long time last year to methodically go through and really talk about students with our LST team, about students we felt would benefit from being connected to a group like this and would bring some of their perspective, because we all know all students, their perspective of school is very different, can be very different, even though we're very much the same in a lot of ways. It can be very different how they experience school. So we met as a team, the LST team, came up with a list. We decided to keep it simple to start with, to keep it to third and fourth graders, with the understanding that, the following year we would at least have one group of students who had already done some of the work. It would be, less new teaching. So we came up with a list, we created a list, and then we met with some of the classroom teachers, and then we developed a final list. We sent out invitations and required parent, signature that parents were okay with them participating. And we have a large group. You can see their names are in the PowerPoint. So, and they represent a nice, well-rounded group of children. So, and they bring very different perspectives to our things that we don't even think about. They bring a great perspective to our group when we meet. So
it's kind of like a 2-year commitment for third graders, and then you'll bring in a new
yes.
third grade class
And
every year.
we've had
So
some
that's the
discussion
identification
about
year.
including some younger students. I mean, I think Dr. Preble would love that, to get the younger students involved. But we just didn't want to take on too much. We wanted to sort of refine it and get it going first before we thought about expanding it. But as we know, our younger students, and that's with some of the research that Dr. Siegel is doing for our school, he's actually very interested in how students as young as kindergarten and first grade perceive kindness in relation to a third or a fourth grader. And so that information, we're hoping, is going to help us develop some of those lessons for the morning meeting and for our town meetings, to kind of model some of those expected behaviors. So we're kind of trying to customize it for West School. So, yeah.
And the other question I had was, so we've been doing school climate surveys for a number of years, and I know Dr. Bliss is new, but have you seen a shift over time of what children are identifying as concerns or strong points in the schools?
That's a good question. I mean, I think academics is a big area of concern for kids. Socially navigating the landscape for kids is always hard. Playground, bus, lunchroom, recess. And we're very cognizant of that. And, a lot of those are the kinds of things that we want to model for students. For example, how to be kind to a younger student who, instead of, choosing a different behavior. So we're just starting to begin to really notice and observe those behaviors, and our goal would really be to customize some of the learning that we want to take place based on what we're observing with the students. So if that makes sense, yeah.
Sangeeta?
I just had one follow-up. This is actually for Dr. Bliss. As we're talking about, rolling this in with the K through 12, middle school years are always, like you said, the toughest, on kids. And it seems like Dr. Preble, from just your presentation, has been very instrumental in helping get the language and, working with the teachers and such. Is he going to be working with the middle school as well? Because I feel like that's such a big focus with this area.
In fact, he spent the day with us just before the break, the Thursday before the break, and he met with the SLTs in the 5th grade, the 6th grade, the 7th grade, and the 8th grade, and then we all came together for like a big town meeting at the end of the day. Yes.
SLT.
Student leadership team, sorry, it's just rolling off my tongue already. Yes, the student leadership team. So he's actually been, that was his second visit this year, but he's also been available to us by Skype when we have an issue or we have a question. He's been able to help us think through some different avenues and ways to get kids motivated. One of our big challenges has been really making sure that all kids are involved in the school climate work, and that the student leadership teams, while they're kind of a steering committee, they shouldn't be the only kids involved. And so we're really working hard to try to get other kids involved and have that more systematic throughout the school. So those are just some of the things.
Good.
We're having a big farmers market on the 26th, where we're presenting all that the student leadership teams have been doing to the faculty who are coming, and they're going to be able to shop around, and the kids will actually be showing them all that they've done in terms of improving relationships with substitute teachers, including improving relationships with other kids, working on bus issues, working on cafeteria issues. So if you want to come along to our farmers market.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Sherry?
Sorry, I just have one more comment. I know this is going long, but just continuing on the theme of the measurement, because and I know you've already acknowledged that this is complicated, and it's
Sure.
that you're kind of continuing to work through this, but it seems to me that we need to continue to think, how we really are clear on the stressors by grade, and it's going to be different at the elementary versus SACS versus the high school, but a climate survey may or may not do that.
Yes.
But going beyond the climate survey, like, how do we become more clear on what are the top stressors for our kids, and what programming do we need to introduce
To reach those
to make sure that we're addressing those stressors?
I hear you. I think one of the things that we have thought about, and again, I'm new, but I think would be interesting, is with parent permission to do some focus groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we did do some small focus groups at South with some of the younger kids, just to ask them about their perceptions. And that may be something that we, would be able to kind of get some qualitative data, which
Right.
often is more valuable than
Right.
the quantitative in any case, just to hear more. And I do informally do that when I'm at the student leadership team meetings, and it's amazing what kids will tell you, in those meetings about their experiences. So that's helped me a lot to try to get beyond just numbers and hear about their experiences. But so hopefully we'll be able to continue to do some of that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to thank you all for being here, and I hope that you see by the number of questions and the number of comments how supportive as a board we are of the work that you're doing. It's really critical right now, I think. I mean, it's always critical, but particularly right now, I think everybody's understanding how important the work is, and so we really appreciate you bringing this information to us.
Thank you.
And I just really wanted to acknowledge the fact that we have a phenomenal school climate committee made up of faculty members that are incredible, and they're so dedicated to this work, and there they are. But we have some phenomenal meetings, and the things that we talk about and the things that we really unpack that we want our school to be really come through in those meetings. So Ashley and I sort of facilitate that conversation, but really the true work comes from these people on this committee. They do a great job, so I just wanted to acknowledge that with them. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
And they're lucky to have the two of you facilitating and leading them in this work, and Dr. Bliss helping them as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a statement of accounts with Dr. Keating.
Thank you. Before we take a look at the March Statement of Accounts, I just wanted to mention to everyone that the financial report for 2016 was approved by the Audit Committee a few weeks ago, and we have hard copies of the report in central office, but it will also be posted online on the town's website if you'd like to take a look at it. This year it's a complete CAFR, which means it's a comprehensive report. It includes a management analysis and discussion, which does explain our variances to budget, our actuals to budget. So we've been asked a lot about those variances in different contexts over the last few months. The explanations are sitting right online. It can be found there. One thing I also want to tell you is that there was no changes to the Board of Education's expenditures as a result of the audit. So the September report that you received as unaudited was audited, and there are no changes to that report. So for the March report, so I was happy about that. For the March report, we continue to track consistent with our reforecast for mid-year. We are currently expended at 67.8% of our $86.2 million budget. We have 28.7% encumbered. So currently, we only have 3.6% of the budget that is not either expended or encumbered. We do continue to take a look at a variable accounts such as overtime, special ed, substitutes, unanticipated repairs, the things that we've talked about over the last few months. And while there's no significant changes to those accounts, we will be bringing transfers forward in the next month or two to clean up the books for the year end. So other than that, there's not much to report.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Keating? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the action items, we have a Saks PTC donation. I feel like every board meeting we are getting these very generous donations from our PTCs and PFAs. If I could get a motion to approve a donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Saks PTC toward LED lighting in the Saks Auditorium. Sherry, second. Hazel. Any discussion?
I can just very briefly share that this $10,000 being donated from the Saks PTC will go towards the LED lighting. They're contributing towards the overall cost. The building project itself is picking up some of the cost. The Saks PTC is picking up some. VPA has done some fundraising, and they are picking up some of that cost as well. So I think this is an excellent example of the public-private partnership piece, and about the parents and community helping with this project to help it be an excellent auditorium for our middle school students. You know, this is lighting for that space that they need, and it will make a big difference for the performances and for the other uses of the auditorium. But it is, in the very beginning of the project, I know there are some questions about the public picking up or helping out with some of the costs, and I think this is a great example of that. And it was, again, as you mentioned, very generous of the Saks PTC to do so.
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to comments from the public. I'm assuming no one, nope. So announcements and future business. Dr. Lutzy.
Sure. First, let me just say thank you all for coming out the day after spring break. I know it's not the easiest evening to schedule in, and thank you for being here. At our next meeting 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about the K-12 district technology. I know Matt has been working with his department a bit, and Dr. Cranty's been helping him out in getting that together. We'll be taking a look at the use of technology K-12 and the sort of the guiding philosophies behind that use. We'll also get a quick update on our enrollment, I believe, just a quick snapshot to see where we are with our numbers. Because as you know, as we look at our budget and look to come forward to the board with an operating budget proposal for 17-18, enrollment drives so much of that. You know, we think about our staffing costs and our salary costs. So we'll get a quick update at that meeting. You know, and Gary's just learning about this now. That's okay. He's got a very wide angle. He's got 2 weeks. So, and we may have an executive session that evening to begin. As we think about it, it's the first meeting of May. There are only a few meetings left as we get into the conclusion of the school year. So we may have an executive session to discuss our non-represented salaries a bit around that.
And then also, just for the board and any members of the public that are interested, on Thursday, which is an unusual date for the town council, there's a town council meeting at 7:30 at Town Hall. There's a number of items where the Board of Ed or items of interest to members that have school-age children would be interested. We have a bond presentation, or a, bond
Discussion
discussion.
of items, capital items included in the bond.
And then the cell tower discussion, they're just going to be getting information from the Utilities Commission. There's no public comment on that day, but it'll be an information session. And then also the discussion of the track facility will be on that agenda as well. So 7:30 on Thursday. All right.
Very good.
If I could get a motion to adjourn. Sherry, second. Hazel. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.